America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When it comes to the money you spend every day, we have you covered every morning. Making money makes sense. Weekdays on CBS Mornings.
After nearly 4 decades of March Madness, this sports broadcasting legend is stepping away from his role in covering the NCAA basketball tournament. Jim Nantz on his fondest memories and what's next when we go person to person.
When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are.
He would be a very tough opponent if Donald Trump is a nominee.
Instead of being grateful, DeSantis is now attacking the very man who saved his career.
I do believe there is a federal role on abortion.
We're going to see if Speaker McCarthy even has the votes of his own party to get this plan past the finish line.
Welcome to Red and Blue. I'm Robert Costa in Washington. Thank you for joining us. President Biden has officially announced he's running for re-election. He made the announcement in a video released this morning. In his first speech since the launch, Biden addressed a union group here in Washington. He sprinkled in his new campaign slogan, "Finish the job," with the crowd cheering in response. And today marks exactly 4 years since he announced his last presidential bid in 2019. A CBS News poll out today shows 55% of Democratic voters want the president to run again. That's compared to 45% who say he should not mount another campaign. For more on this developing story, CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, joins us now. Anthony, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Bob. How are you?
It's announcement day, Anthony. So why is there a split among some Democrats about whether Biden should do this again?
As usual, Bob, you asked the key question because, yeah, people can say he should or he shouldn't, but he is. So the question becomes, why do Democrats feel that way? And you see these concerns within his party among those that's sizable, almost over 4 in 10, who say he shouldn't. It's his age that they say is their number one answer. Related to that, time for someone new, but I want to point this out. It's not how they feel about his performance. Democrats would still consider supporting him. They still think he's doing a good job, but it's those concerns about age and time for someone new. And then the other part, Bob, I want to show you this, which is how do they feel about it? This becomes operative because when you look ahead, a campaign has to generate enthusiasm, has to generate excitement, right? Well, Democrats are more accepting than they are confident. Just as many are nervous, and only 1 in 5 is excited. So that kind of lays out the road ahead for the campaign from here, Bob.
Anthony, when you see that some people are unhappy about the state of things in the country, what does that tell you? And my question as a reporter is that sometimes that doesn't tell you everything. Think about the midterm elections in 2022. A lot of people didn't feel good about the economy, about inflation, but an issue like abortion rights galvanized many Democrats and some others to turn out and support the Democrats who did better than expected in some races. So how are you weighing some of the frustration in the country about the economy and other issues with the energy on an issue like abortion rights?
Well, I think pertinent to today in Biden's announcement, you take a look at this number, which I pointed to for a while. Do you feel like things in the country are under control or are they out of control? And you get these big numbers right now, 72%, and this has been like this for a while, that feel like they're out of control. So you might think, okay, that's not necessarily a great environment for an incumbent president because a president is always at least somewhat linked to those larger views. So then I follow that up and I say, well, okay, what are the reasons for that? And the top answer is this more general state of U.S. politics. And the other answer is also very general, the economy. Now, for a lot of Republicans and some independents, Joe Biden is also tied to that. So it does become something he has to address. Those numbers you mentioned, those feelings that things are not in control, that the economy isn't good. However, that's a very partisan number, and a lot of Democrats feel like Joe Biden is in there keeping things under control. That's the argument he's going to have to make against that backdrop of those overly negative feelings, Bob.
Anthony Salvanto, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was President Biden earlier today, shortly after his 2024 announcement. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris speaking today alongside abortion rights groups here in Washington. For more, let's bring in CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns, who is attending the vice president's event this evening, and CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe from the White House. Ed, you spoke with a member of Congress and the Biden campaign co-chair. Tell us more about that conversation.
That's right. So the campaign is underway, and he announced a national leadership. It's a collection of names that are well known to Democrats across the country: the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer, the senator from Illinois, Tammy Duckworth, the entertainment mogul, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who's among one of the most generous donors to Democratic campaigns. But Lisa Blunt Rochester is the congresswoman from the president's home state of Delaware. And we talked to her about these concerns that Democrats have, but whether or not he should be running again. Take a look. Nearly half of Democrats don't want him running again, and they overwhelmingly cite his age as a reason. There's been some other polling this week that suggests age is a major reason why people don't think he should do this again. He's 80 now. He'd be 86 at the end of a second term. What does the Biden-Harris campaign say to the concerns, the overwhelming concerns of Democrats and Americans overall, that he may be too old to do this job?
Well, you know, I like to think back to what he says when people bring that up, which is just watch me. And he has demonstrated, as I mentioned, that he's been able to bring transformational change. And even in this last election, I think one of the reasons why you did not see that big red wave in the House was because people recognize that he is doing an incredible job. And, you know, to the point of excitement, that's part of our job. That's part of my job as a co-chair of the campaign. That's part of his job as he gets on the campaign trail, is for people to see it, believe it, and feel it.
And I realize it's early, but have you had any discussions yet with the campaign team about what campaigning looks like in 2024? The reason I ask is, of course, he spent so much of the pandemic campaign in 2020 literally campaigning from home, and it worked. So is there a discussion yet about how much out in the country in-person stuff he's going to do versus either campaigning from here at the White House and in the virtual space?
Well, I think today's a good example. I mean, he launched the video and he is already out on the campaign trail, again, meeting with union workers. And I think the difference is going to be that we're not in the midst of a pandemic, and we will be able to get out and about across the country.
One thing we should point out is a difference with a distinction. The event today was actually an official White House presidential event, not a campaign event. So she says he was on a campaign trail. No, he was up at the Washington Hilton talking to loyal constituency, labor unions. And we should point out, not only did he announce his 2020 bid 4 years ago today, but the first appearance he made after officially becoming a candidate was in front of a labor union crowd. So they're clearly trying to replicate some of the success from 4 years ago.
Maybe not a formal campaign event, but something certainly with the spirit of a campaign. Caitlin, you've been covering campaign events and campaign-spirited events all day. Tell us more about what your latest reporting is.
Well, earlier today, we were following Nikki Haley. She's a Republican candidate for president, and she was giving a speech on the issue of abortion. Tonight, we are covering Kamala Harris, the vice president, who was actually featured pretty prominently in that Biden reelection campaign video amid questions about, whether she would, whether there were Democratic concerns about her being on the ticket again, kind of put that to rest. She's giving a speech tonight. She's addressing pro-abortion rights groups here in Washington. And so this really shows, this kind of split screen shows that the issue of abortion is going to be a key issue in the campaign, really for both sides. We've seen it be a galvanizing issue for Democrats especially. We saw that in the midterms, and we saw that most recently several weeks ago in that Wisconsin state Supreme Court race. Republicans that we've been talking to acknowledge that this is something that they have to contend with in a post-Dobbs world. But we've also seen Republicans really struggle to define a position in terms of what they want the federal government to do now that this has been kicked back to the states. You've seen some Republicans kind of tie themselves in knots trying to figure out how to respond to this issue. Mike Pence, who you spoke with over the weekend in Iowa, was very clear on his position of wanting some kind of federal minimum standard. And that question has been posed to others like Nikki Haley. So Nikki Haley today wanted to show that she is not only trying to appeal to Republican primary voters with a anti-abortion stance in the states, but also try to reach out to swing voters. So kind of shows how she's trying to thread that needle, and said that she wants to be a national consensus builder on this. She argued that any sort of ban that has been passed in the states wouldn't be able to pass at the federal level, given that you would need a supermajority in the Senate. But still, there are questions about what exactly her position would be. But I thought it was significant because she is trying to reach out on this issue. But it's a tricky one because on one hand, you have to have those on the base, and on the other hand, you have to reach out to those swing voters who Republicans have lost and who, data shows are more, in tune with this issue.
Terrific insights. Ed, how does that all play into the Biden White House and their strategy moving ahead?
Well, if you look at that campaign release video, and if you look at where the vice president's going, Howard University, right where Caitlin is later today, Democrats are ready and eager to make the future of access to abortion services a key part of their campaign, seeing how successful it was in some key states last year, and knowing that it remains a top-of-mind concern for so many voters. So you'll see him talk about that, about protecting gay rights, criticizing Republicans for banning books in schools, protecting Social Security, arguing that taxes for working-class Americans should be kept lower or cut, and the broader issue of defending and sustaining democracy, not only here in the United States, but around the world. That's a lot to work with to start, and a lot of that is base motivating, but it's also, especially in terms of abortion rights, Social Security, defending democracy, issues that recent elections show are popular with voters across the spectrum, and that's what the president's going to need in order to get to 270 plus yet again in November 24.
Caitlin, how do your Republican sources assess the Biden reelection campaign?
Well, it's interesting, Bob, because Republicans that we have talked to, Mike Pence, Tim Scott, in interviews, I've asked them, is Biden's age an issue? Do you have any problems with his mental and physical abilities? And they wouldn't engage on that issue. They said that their issues are with his policies. And that is interesting because you do have, the Republican Party trying to draw these contrasts, but at the same time, they are contending with the idea that Donald Trump, who is the same age as Biden, essentially leading in those Republican polls. So there is a little bit of a difficult position that Republicans are in, trying to say that they want to turn the page without trying to alienate Trump on age. One of those who has gone there is Nikki Haley, however. Remember when she announced her campaign, she said that there should be a competency test for politicians over a certain age that would have included Biden and Donald Trump. There aren't many yet that agree with her, at least on the official side, people who are running. But that is something that they're thinking about. So, whether it will be a Trump-Biden rematch, we're still waiting for other candidates on the Republican side to jump in. Ron DeSantis, as you know, is, thinking about and positioning himself for a run. So there's still a lot to be shaken out on the Republican side. And their issue is that they have to not only draw a contrast with Trump to be able to identify themselves as, someone who can beat him, but also someone that can beat Biden. So this electability in terms of not only the general, but in terms of the primary, are themes overarching in that race right now.
Caitlin Huey-Burns and Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much. Another Republican hopeful is set to jump into the presidential race tomorrow. What he told CBS News over the weekend in Iowa is coming up. You're streaming Red and Blue, reporting across the political divide.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today. I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift. Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Morning news matters because it sets the tone for your day, and it's a way of getting you started.
We're going to uplift you. We're going to send you out your way. Day to day, that first draft of history, it happens right here.
CBS Mornings. An original documentary from CBS reports.
I always tell people that Twitter would not be Twitter without Black Twitter. It's just us being in fellowship with each other.
And it becomes a conversation you don't want to be left out of.
People really started to recognize the power of activism on Twitter.
Based on that one tweet, the hashtag #OscarSoWhite was trending around the world.
If anything has really powered Black Twitter, it's been humor.
If your food ain't right, oh, we're gonna tell you about that too.
We tend to create change, create culture and cool.
That's how movements happen on Black Twitter and go beyond more than that.
Black Twitter, the Twitterverse that changed a generation. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
You ready? A generation of kids opens up on CBS Reports.
I just want to be like a regular kid.
Their world, their struggles, their voices.
What if I was white?
A lot of people like to call names and make you feel ashamed for being proud of who you are.
Now streaming Gender.
I did not realize that you could change your gender.
Realizing how you feel.
You can be a boy, sometimes you feel like a girl, sometimes you feel like both.
Redefining who you are.
Identify as trans.
Gender fluid.
Non-binary and queer.
Is the idea of gender a thing of the past?
And to be yourself, always, no matter what anyone says, I love you.
Are the kids all right? Gender. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We go to stories because we can bring someone to that story. That human connection is incredibly important. The news doesn't have to be depressing.
What do you love about running? Energy! Energy!
It can be uplifting.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. A growing list of Republicans are vying to run against President Biden in the general election next year. Asa Hutchinson will officially launch his bid for president on Wednesday. CBS News political director Finn Gomez joins us now. Let's begin, Finn, with a part of our trip to Iowa over the weekend. You joined our team. We were talking to former Vice President Pence. We also spoke to Asa Hutchinson.
Well, he would be a very tough opponent if Donald Trump is a nominee. That's their best wish. I think it's terrific that President Biden is announcing whenever his poll numbers are so low, people don't like what he's done with the economy. They don't like what he's done with the border. They don't like what he's done with energy policy. So it's an ideal circumstance for us if we come together and we put the right nominee up against him.
You've been in politics a long time. Is President Biden a formidable political candidate?
Well, he won, and anytime you're an incumbent, you'd have to say it's formidable. And you know, the Democrat Party is going to rally around him. And so, sure, he's a formidable opponent. You have to take that seriously.
That was an intriguing conversation with the former Arkansas governor who's announcing this week, because so many Republicans today, on the day the president announces his reelection, they are trashing the president's political record, his policies. Hutchinson is saying could be pretty formidable.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think also that he is acknowledging that Donald Trump is a formidable candidate. I think that he is, for his, not expected, he's going to announce tomorrow officially, formally jumping into the race from his base in Bentonville, Arkansas. I think he has, as we have discussed, like a pretty uphill climb, and I think he sees that Donald Trump is in his way as he is in the majority of the rest of the field.
The Biden campaign, what do you make of the leadership of this newly announced campaign?
I think it's well respected. I've been speaking to Democratic operatives throughout the week, both in Biden world and outside of Biden world, who say they come with a lot of respect. Julie Chavez Rodriguez was the former 2020 deputy campaign manager for Biden and Harris. She's close to Harris. She was part of her campaign as the traveling chief of staff, as the, as a senior advisor to her. So, and she also has a long political experience from the campaign trail to the White House, from California. I think there's a lot of respect, and I think they know that they have somewhat of a daunting task if you look at the latest poll numbers, but they feel strong and they feel comfortable in their abilities to challenge whomever.
Seems like Vice President Harris and her people have a real seat at the table with this campaign. Meanwhile, in the Republican race, former President Trump taking real shots at Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Let's take a look.
Ron DeSantis was struggling big time in his primary race for governor of Florida. Polls revealed DeSantis was failing so bad, he was losing by a staggering 17 points. Then DeSantis was saved by the endorsement of President Trump. Trump's support was so powerful, just 2 days after the endorsement, DeSantis took a commanding lead, and it propelled him to being elected governor.
Does this all keep DeSantis out of the race?
No, I do not believe so. But I mean, that's a pretty brutal campaign ad, and we can confirm. CBS News can confirm. I just spoke to the Trump campaign just before I came on, and that they have made their official first ad buy for this ad, this well-produced ad that hits DeSantis really hard, right in the chin.
Where are they making the buy?
Still getting that information. I've asked the campaign for more information on that. Likely cable buy is what I'm hearing, but it's the first major one. MAGA Inc., their super PAC, has made some previous purchases this cycle, about $5 million. It's going to be a pretty big buy is what I'm told.
Whether it's Asa Hutchinson or Ron DeSantis, debate stages will be a real opportunity for candidates to square off with Trump. But will Trump even show up at the debates?
I mean, that's the thing. We're hearing news. He came out on Truth Social today saying that that he is not committed to anything, which is kind of sort of causes a bit of some upheaval and uproar from the campaign trail in rival camps. What if he doesn't show up to the first debate? What if he doesn't show up to the second? It's reminiscent of that 2016 debate in Iowa where everyone was waiting for him to show up and he never did. And that's just, it's so much of this is dependent upon the former president. So what happens? I mean, who will watch if there's no Donald Trump at these debates? It's really a big question, and it puts the RNC and Ronna McDaniel in a tough position, a tough corner.
Hard to see him resisting the opportunity to go before all the cameras and the press. Vin Gomez, thank you. Speaker Kevin McCarthy's debt limit plan nearing a House vote. Coming up, we'll take a look at how the Republican Speaker is attempting to bring together his members to get it passed. You're streaming Red and Blue.
An original documentary from CBS reports. Controversial Congressman George Santos.
Why won't you answer our questions?
How did he manage to get elected?
Thank you very much, and God bless you, and God bless the USA.
George Santos' campaign was a campaign of deceit, lies, fabrication.
And who is he, really?
I knew him as Anthony DeVolder from Queens.
Really, who he is, he's a fraud.
I compare him to the Tinder swindler.
From people who know him, the truth, the facts, the lies.
He would say that he was worth $100 million.
It's an incredibly cynical episode in American politics, beyond satire.
Had you ever seen anything like this?
No, and I hope I never see it again.
Campaign of Deceit, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
She dazzled on the court and off the court as a businesswoman. Thank you for joining us on Person to Person. Tennis superstar and entrepreneur Serena Williams.
an original CBS Reports documentary.
I asked my students, what are we going to do about racism in the United States?
The backlash over teaching about racism in American schools.
I don't think it has any place in the classroom.
We can either pretend and say, no, we're not racist and we're all great people, or we can actually start to do the really, really hard work of addressing it.
How did you lose your job? I made the statement that white privilege is a fact.
Is it helping diversity and inclusion?
When you bring in different people's stories and experience, it enriches education.
If you don't talk about something, it doesn't go away.
Or driving us further apart?
What schools are doing to our children in the name of anti-racism is in fact teaching them racism.
The intention is to put us in this war against each other.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. An original CBS Reports documentary.
I was entitled to equal pay for equal work under the law.
Does the Supreme Court's power need to be checked?
9 Supreme Court justices, 5 of them said no, she's not entitled. That's not right.
Calls to fix the court tend to go along with the politics of the moment.
Republican-appointed justices have all tended to go in one direction, with the Democratic-appointed justices tending to go in another.
Even though it's only 9 justices, it takes 5 of them to make the law of the land.
Does it have political impact? True. Political intent? Probably not true.
If the American people don't trust the judgment of their court, that's a real problem for our democracy.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. The House Rules Committee is marking up Speaker Kevin McCarthy's bill to lift the debt ceiling today, with a full House vote coming as early as Wednesday. The GOP leader's legislation would raise the debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion or through March of next year, whichever comes first. For more on this story, CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian joins us. Nicole, thank you for being here. Are Republicans going to pass this bill or not?
Well, that's certainly the hope among Republican leaders, like the Speaker, like with Emmer. You know, he just walked into the Speaker's office a short time ago and said, we're going to pass this tomorrow. So Republican leaders remain confident. But as you know, Bob, this is always a game of numbers. And right now, a lot of Republicans have continued to express skepticism about the bill. Certainly, it appears more than 4 members, which is all they can stand to lose.
The Speaker does have a slim majority. Nicole, what are the tactics being deployed by the leadership to try to get this to the place it needs to go for them?
Well, it's almost as if the Speaker's office is a train station, because literally all afternoon we have seen members come in and out of his office. As I mentioned, Whip Emmer recently was in the Speaker's office. We saw members from the Iowa delegation in his office, along with a number of other members, more conservative members, like Congressman Scott Perry paid a visit to the Speaker earlier this afternoon. So everybody's kind of going in different groups. But I can tell you, in terms of the Iowa delegation, they remain pretty mum coming out of the Speaker's office. You know, there has been some concern about some of the tax credits that Republicans may try to roll back that are part of the Inflation Reduction Act, specifically as they deal with the issue of ethanol, which of course is a key issue for those in Iowa. So many of those members really wouldn't comment to reporters on their way out. So it's unclear. We don't know if they're going to support the plan, if they're not going to support the bill. And then you have other more conservative members who have expressed concerns. They don't think that this bill reins in spending enough. Others have concerns about work requirements. But again, even in spite of all of this, we know there won't be many changes made to the bill. So people pretty much have to get in line. Or otherwise, you know, this could cause real problems for the Speaker if he can't get the support.
Nicole, other issues continue to make their way forward on Capitol Hill, including immigration. What's the latest on that front?
Well, we know that House Republicans have been moving forward quietly on an immigration and border security plan, which could be an even heavier lift than this debt ceiling bill. But if they're able to kind of get that debt ceiling bill cleared, their hope is to move forward eventually on immigration and border security. So we know tomorrow that the House Homeland Security Committee will be marking up a bill. This follows the House Judiciary Committee marking up a companion bill. House Judiciary was kind of focused more on the immigration reform component. So, for instance, tightening up asylum rules and requirements. This bill that the Homeland Security Committee is marking up deals more so with, for instance, continuing construction of the wall, providing more funding for Border Patrol. So, again, it'll be interesting to see if Republicans can advance that bill, because that would be a huge lift for them, a huge climb. And while it has been a priority and something on their agenda, once again, not all members are in agreement in terms of this proposal. So certainly a lot of work for the Speaker, the leadership, not just this week, but certainly in the weeks ahead on several issues.
Congress not in agreement, not a surprise. Nicole Killian, thank you. That does it for today. You can stream Red and Blue Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. You're streaming CBS News.
In today's Money Watch, business analyst Jill Schlesinger is here to help.
How do you even begin to make the best use of your money?
If you've got a match from your employer, don't give away that money.
Dollar Jill, y'all.
CBS Mornings, starting at 7.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.